Excuse me.
Are you still doing it? Wait.
Yeah.
When you said she's doing a video, I thought you were in there.
When do I ever do videos in there?
I don't know.
Do you watch Saint Stories? I feel like I wore this exact same outfit last year on the feast of Thomas Aquinas. Some things never change. Does this turtleneck make me look intellectual? We'll see. Hey friends, I'm Kelsey and welcome back to Saint Stories. If it's your first time here, it's a great time to jump in because we are kicking off a fun little series all about, drumroll please, holiness. Bet you didn't see that one coming. And if you came here because you're wondering, what's the secret sauce to this holiness thing? You've also come to the right place because we are going to be talking all about virtue. Over the next number of months, we are going to be zoning in on specific virtues and occasionally their accompanying vices and highlighting them through the lives, the witnesses, and the wisdom of the saints. So with that, let's get started with everybody's favorite, humility. Now I have an interesting relationship with humility, don't we all? I feel like we all have a humility story. Mine happens to be about 2 years ago. I resolved firmly that I was going to pray the litany of humility every single day. So I got 2 days in, and on the second day, I was out for a little walk around my neighborhood, as I do, and I'm just minding my business, I have some headphones in, reflecting on the day as the sun is setting. It's a dream. Until this car of what I assume to be high school kids, those little rascals, speed by me and throw a milkshake at me. Now, I don't think this was anything personal because I just moved to the area. I think it was just, something fun that people do. I reflected back on the circumstances that led me to this moment, being on the side of the road with a milkshake all over me and a bruise on my leg, and thought, this is probably because I'm praying the litany of humility. So after that, I was a little intimidated and kind of rolled back on my resolution. Despite what I've already talked about in this video, humility is not opening yourself up to humiliation. And contrary to what you already might think, humility is not thinking poorly of ourselves. How does that one saying go? It's not about thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Now, I'm sorry, C.S. Lewis, but I'm gonna have to argue that it's even more than that. Because the truth is, pursuing any type of virtue without the Lord, when we zero it into just ourselves, it's an empty and unsustainable feat. Our efforts in pursuing virtue by our own means may make us respectable. But as Christians, we know that the Lord calls us to more than just respect. He calls us to righteousness. And only by His grace are we given this ability to cultivate an ordered disposition of virtue in our hearts and to truly be holy. So how do we do that? I'm glad you asked. How do we make ourselves humble while simultaneously recognizing this call to greatness and righteousness? And I believe it starts by simply recognizing that it is a call and our lives are a response. Our lives are not just a random occurrence or a circumstance that we try to make the best of. Our lives were willed by a creator who desires greatness for our lives more than we desire it for ourselves. And so when we begin to recognize that our lives are not our own, that our lives are merely a response, then we can begin to live this virtue. It is only by seeing ourselves truly as we are, sons and daughters of God, by submitting ourselves and embracing, not resisting, our complete dependence on Him, that we can really live. By living our lives with humility, recognizing how weak we are in our humanity, but how powerful and loving and merciful God is, our lives become more fruitful than we could imagine. But it requires that we lay down our pride and recognize our own shortcomings and the ways that we depend on the Lord and all the ways that we should depend on the Lord. We have to see ourselves through the light of Christ. And you might think, no, thank you. I don't want to see myself through that lens because there's so much in my life that I don't want the Lord to see. And there's this great analogy that I've heard before of when you've been in darkness a long time. Think of, when you go to bed and you sleep the whole night and then somebody just comes into your room and turns on the light. That immediate experience is jarring and can kind of shake you up. And it hurts. It takes a minute to adjust. But once you come into the light, the world is so much more clearer. You can see your surroundings. You can see what is around you. And that's the same with virtue, specifically humility. When we let the light of Christ illuminate our lives, it changes everything. And it might hurt. It hurts to recognize how weak we are. But when we pair that with a Father who loves us and will sustain us and provides the grace for everything that we need, it becomes a liberating experience. Saint Teresa of Avila said, "Far from disturbing or depressing the soul, true humility enlarges it and makes it fit to serve God better." Recognizing how little we are does not make our lives small. In fact, it enlarges our lives. It makes our souls greater. It opens up our hearts and makes us more receptive to the Lord's grace. It brings us peace, not desolation. The Lord doesn't ask us to give ourselves away just for the sake of doing it. He asks us to lay down our lives for the sake of His kingdom, to surrender everything and trust that He has a good plan for our lives. He always has more grace to give, and He will not leave us alone. And so, if you don't know where to start today when it comes to humility, or maybe you're just a little intimidated by the litany of humility, I don't blame you. I invite you to recite a simple prayer. Jesus, I love you. Make me more like you. Because living from this relationship, this mutual exchange of love between us and the Lord, it's the only way our lives will change. We have to live from this relationship. We cannot have humility without love. But lucky for us, we serve a God who gives love freely and fully. So I'm with you, friend, and I'm praying for you. Talk to you soon.